In this video, we're going to be looking at the trade-off between equity and efficiency and the often negative correlation that exists between the two, even though it's not always a negative correlation. So basically in Australia, we're looking for what we call an optimal level of inequality. And that's basically the point where the total benefits of inequality, both social and economic, just outweigh the total costs. So we've talked about both the benefits and costs associated with inequality. We want to find the point where the benefits just outweigh the costs. And it generally occurs at a Gini coefficient of around 0.3 to 0.4. So what's the problem with too much equity on efficiency? Well, too much equity, which we discussed briefly in the last video, decreases the incentive to be innovative, to take risks, and work productively, which will boost our real GDP per capita over time. So the problem with trying to focus too much on equity is it reduces the incentive to work hard, to be entrepreneurial, to be innovative, and that can essentially reduce our real GDP per capita over time as we lose jobs because of our lack of international competitiveness. So it provides less incentive to invest in skills, to boost our education, to boost our human capital, and this all will limit our future productive capacity and productivity. So the problem with too much equity is it reduces technical efficiency. We have that inability to work hard. It reduces technical efficiency because people won't be as productive because they don't get to keep as much of their money, and we're profit motivated. It also can reduce allocative efficiency because basically the idea of price signals and having an inequitable distribution of income is that basically labour will go to the areas where there's the highest level of demand. So if there's a high level of demand for doctors, because they'll generate a high wage, a lot of people want to become doctors, and therefore smart, intelligent people will shift their resources into those areas where they are best suited. The problem with more equity is that these skilled labour may not go to where they're best suited because they don't have that profit motive. They don't have that wage incentive to shift their resources to that area. So one problem is labour resources may not go to the areas where they are going to maximise society's living standards because they're not going to get the financial reward from doing so. So that reduces the effectiveness of price signals, and it leads to a problem with allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency is all about resources going to where they're most valued by society. If prices don't allow those signals to occur and we keep the distribution of income too equitable, labour resources will not go where they're meant to go. So for example, smart, intelligent people that are capable of being doctors or nurses or lawyers, they may decide that they don't bother getting a job because there's too much welfare in society. Or they get a low-skilled job that's not really making the most of their skills, and that's inefficient. Alright, so that was the problem with too much equity on efficiency. Now we're looking at some of the problems with too much efficiency on equity. And in the short term, promoting efficiency can be bad for equity. Overall living standards may fall because more poor people lead to have lower non-material living standards. So if we're not providing a safety net for the poor, that can lead to more crime, more social disharmony. Also, measures to increase efficiency like structural reforms, so businesses becoming more automated or removing unfair dismissal laws so it's easy to get rid of poor performing workers. All of this can lead to more unemployment, but on the flip, which can therefore lead to more inequity in the distribution of income. So promoting efficiency through increased technology or structural reforms can often lead to more unemployment, which is bad for equity in the short term. In the long term, however, if we become more efficient, this should help to promote equity in the sense that it provides the incentive to become more productive, and that helps to decrease prices and boost aggregate demand. So if we become more efficient, even if it's at the expense of equity in the short term, what should happen is jobs should stay in Australia because we're more productive and therefore more internationally competitive. So in the long term, promoting efficiency can lead to reduced unemployment, it can lead to less people relying on transfer income because they now have a job, and boost factor incomes. And that can improve equity. So promoting efficiency is not all bad for equity. It does have positives in the long term if it helps to boost productivity and keep jobs in Australia. Here's some examples of some questions about how to answer questions relating to the trade-off between equity and efficiency. So, one possible answer. Greater equity may stifle motivation, drive and personal effort, or innovation and enterprise, resulting in lower productivity. A decrease in productive efficiency, which will shift the aggregate supply curve to the left, will result in higher prices and lead to a contraction in aggregate demand. So promoting too much equity can lead to problems with efficiency. Similarly, if the greater equity has come out as a result of higher taxes or a more progressive tax system, this this can also come at the expense of efficiency because people aren't going to work as hard. So you could talk about people being less motivated to work hard, less motivated to get an education, reducing productivity, reducing our long-term living standards as one trade-off between equity and efficiency. How would a more proportional tax system impact equity and efficiency? Well, if we went through a more proportional tax system and we're only getting, say, let's take 20% per dollar, regardless of how much we earn, that's more of an incentive for people to become efficient because they're going to get to keep 80% of their income, they're high income earners, which is much more than they do at the moment. More incentive to get an education, more incentive to shift your resources to where they're going to be best beneficial for society and improve allocative efficiency. So a proportional tax system could be really good for promoting efficiency because it's an incentive for people to work harder and develop more education. Another example of the trade-off between equity and efficiency. Rational economic decisions that result in greater efficiency, so we're going the other way this time, may come at the cost of equity. The economy may achieve a more efficient allocation of resources through promoting productivity. This could be caused by structural reform, so businesses restructuring, and that can lead to labour redundancy, so sacking people, and structural unemployment, which can lead to more people relying on welfare. So again, the same, the negatives of increased efficiency on equity. However, higher efficiency can exert downward pressure on costs and prices, and therefore promote stronger economic growth in the long term, which can actually have a benefit for equity because it helps to create jobs. So if you're going to do it the other way, how efficiency impacts equity, the best answers will talk about some of the benefits and the costs of efficiency. Costs in the short term, benefits in the long term. Another example, the achievement of the government economic goal of equity might result in a reduction in economic growth over the long term, having negative consequences for material living standards. For example, a decision to increase social welfare benefits for the disadvantaged may create a climate of welfare dependency, so people don't decide to join the workforce because welfare is too good, and this can lead to lower labour force participation. It may lead to higher prices, less competition for jobs, and therefore that can lead to less international competitiveness, hurting efficiency. It means that more resources might be allocated to welfare and that instead of being spent on infrastructure and education as well. So saying if we promote too much equity, that can lead to people relying on welfare. Too much money from the government is spent in those areas, and that can hurt the economy as well.